The 1959 Airfix Bristol Belvedere has made a reappearance under the Vintage Classics label. How's it holding up? Let's see what you get for your money right here on Gary's Stuff. Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm looking at the latest Vintage Classics release from Airfix, the Bristol Belvedere helicopter in 1/72nd scale. If you're thinking of buying one and want to know what your money gets you, this is very much the video for you. And if you like the video, do please remember, give it the old imperial thumbs up on the like button below. And if you haven't done so yet, why not subscribe? Doesn't cost anything. And if you hit the bell, you'll be notified of all my future videos as they are published. Let's find out a bit more about the Bristol Belvedere helicopter in 1/72nd scale from Airfix. Belvedere first made its appearance in the range in 1959, while it was still known by its project number, the Bristol 192, under this box art by Charles Oates. The Ken McDonough box art was introduced in 1966 and stayed with the model until the slightly garish version in 1979 and the slightly more sedate Terry Harrison version in 1997. This was the most recent release of the classic kit. No one else makes a kit of the Belvedere, although there are rumours of Micromere planning a new product in both 1/72nd and 1/48 scales, although given the war in Ukraine, this could be a long time coming. So here it is, the Bristol 192 Belvedere, a Vintage Classics release from Airfix, just been released, or just been delivered to me at least, today. Now, lovely box art on the front, not by Roy Cross, unusually, this one. This is by Ken McDonough in 1966. Shows the helicopter as it was intended as a troop transport, delivering troops up country in the Far East. The product code down here is A03002V. A03 means it's a Series 3 kit, and the V at the end is a reminder that it's a Vintage Classics release. On this long end, just lots of warnings in various languages. On this long end, more interestingly, it says here the mould tools were made in 1959. Pack illustration, Ken McDonough in 1966. A brief description of the helicopter. When complete, the kit will be 385 millimeters long. That's including the rotor discs. Have a width of 207 millimeters, so that is essentially the rotor disc, and there are 50 pieces in total. There are two schemes. They look very similar, I have to say. One's from development trials that the Aircraft and Armament Experimental Establishment at Boscombe Down. The other is the trials unit at Odium. Here are the callouts for the paints. As usual, Humbrol references, and the pilots need those numbers there. The kit is skill level 2, so it can be built by someone if you haven't built something before, but really do take your time. It would be better if you had made a kit more recently, especially not thinking back, oh, I made one of these 50-something years ago. I'm sure I can knock one together over a weekend. I don't really think that's going to be your building experience. So maybe do a starter set first just to get your skills back up to speed, although you could attempt it, at theory at least, at level 2 without having made anything before. I personally wouldn't. There's a token here for 1 flying hour. Now, these, if you're a member of the Airfix Club, you can collect them together, and in the future you can get yourself a free kit. Or if you're not a member of the club, or indeed if you are a member of the club and don't collect these things, then keep hold of them, but at some point maybe just send them to Models for Heroes. They can turn them into model kits to be used by former members of the military and of our first responders as well, who are suffering mental health issues that relate to their service to our country. It's a very, very worthy charity. Okay, that's enough of the box. Let's have a look inside. As normal, it's a top opening box. I do like top opening boxes because it gives you something to store everything in as you're building it. Bag full of plastic parts on frames, and a separate bag with some clear parts. We'll have a look at those in a bit. There's the instruction leaflet. Inside the instruction leaflet, I tucked the new Decals sheet. there's the instructions. We'll have a look at all these in a bit more detail. First of all, we have the two halves of the fuselage. These appear to come on separate frames. I suspect they're not separate frames in reality. They are separate only in that they go together in a mould, but to put them into the box like this would have to be a bigger box. They get separated and put separately like this into the box. But there we go, the two halves of the fuselage. On this frame, we have the tail plates, which are only used on one scheme here. This is an undercarriage support. This is the back of the cabin, the floor of the cabin, I suspect, some covers, and of course some rotor blades and a rotor hub for one of the two rotors. Then the other frame that comes with it is another undercarriage leg. This is probably the forward one because it seems to be steeper. Another set of rotors and blades. These are the tailplane units. Door, maybe a door opener here, and the wheels. Oh, and the aircrew, really not terribly well done. We'll have a look at these, but we'll do something about those aircrew. Just put something else in instead. And then finally the clear components. That's the cabin and three side doors as well. And I've heard these clear parts are a devil to get to sit together. We'll see how we go. Having a bit of a close look at the plastic, you can see all these raised rivets and panel lines. I'm not too worried about that. I'm certainly not going to try and re-rivet this lot for a start, and I'm not entirely sure that they were all that flush. The problem, as always, is going to come when we do the fuselage joint here, trying to maintain something that looks like panel rivet lines there, but I'm not sure how we're going to do that. The edges look okay. There's not too much flash. There's a bit of a strange something or other here. Not quite sure what that is, whether that's... Well, that definitely looks like a fault in the moulding. I think I was taking out the moulding too hot myself. Yeah, the rest of it looks okay. It's the modern sort of brown, slightly brownish tint to the grey. So it's modern plastics, which hopefully will help a bit. No detail on the interior at all, of course. If you're going to have the cargo door open, then I guess you're going to want to put some sort of detailing in here. I'm not entirely sure what. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do that yet. So let's see. Some very small ejector pin marks. Those would have to be cleaned out again if you're going to do the interior. At the tail here, it's interesting. They moulded in some supports to keep the tail in the right place, and that hole there is loads of flash in there. There we go. Very, very flashy little thing. But again, not the worst plastic I've seen, to be perfectly honest with you. On the tailplane parts, you can see here there are ejected pin marks. Those are on the underside, so you might, if you're not too desperately worried about it, you might get away with not doing anything about those. Maybe just very carefully with a knife, just shave the edges of those around. Otherwise, you're going to have to fill it and sand it, and then do something about the rivets. I guess either buy some rivets. You can get Decals of rivets now. Or sand the whole thing down and re-rivet it yourself, which, as I said before, I'm definitely not going to do. Same for the rotors here. Actually quite nice shape. The crew figures are abominable. I mean, really awful. Bear in mind, this is supposed to be a military aircraft. These are very civilian crews. These look like they've come out with something like the Rotodyne, to be honest. They look like civilian crews. The one on the left here is severely undershot as well. I think if you're going to put crew figures in, you're going to want to get some RAF crew figures with, at least with proper flying helmets or bone domes or something. These guys are terribly, terribly civilian. You know, double-breasted suit whilst you're flying. That's not very RAF, I don't think. Anyway, wheels are there. They're okay. They are what they are. Not brilliant, but they'll do. Likewise, the cockpit. Back of the cockpit here has got some fairly big ejector pin marks as well. The floor doesn't matter too much. It's not really all that important. But on there you might want to clean that up if you want to be able to see it. All the rest of the parts are chunky and a little, there's some flash on there. There's some mold marking as well. So there's going to be some work to tidy all these bits up, but it's not insurmountable. It's just going to be a bit of a pain. Again, here on the inside of the fins, you've got big ejector pins now. Because the fins are going to be there, you might not notice them so much, but then again you might. So you're definitely going to tidy them up at the very least, even if you don't completely clean them up. At least you don't see them from the other side, which is a good thing. And the transparencies, as you can see, really not terribly well defined. So you're not going to really be able to get away with putting masking tape on and cutting around it, because there's no real ridges to support where the ends of the glass will be. I think you're going to have to sort of trial and error that one to make it look roughly right. Or of course, wait until CT Scale Models has a set that he's worked on for you. But the plastic looks nice and clean anyway. There's no bubbles or anything like that in there. Nice and shiny, nicely polished. Yeah, they'll do well. But it's the fit of these two that's going to be the issue. Looking now at the decal sheet, and this is where buying a vintage classics release is so much better than buying a more older release with the original style decals, because these are completely new, reprinted by Cartograph to modern standards, very clean, very crisp, beautiful colour, perfectly registered, or at least I hope they are. But this is why you buy vintage classic kits, really, as opposed to the originals, unless you're a collector. If you just want to make the plane or the helicopter or whatever it is, I'd say always go for the vintage classics release if you can, because the decal sheet is so much better. This, of course, is where a very, very large percentage of the cost of the kit is. Because let's be honest, we never ever got detail like that on the original kit. This level of printing just was not available on decal sheets in the UK. This really will make a difference to the look of the finished model. And there also there's so many more stencils than they would have put on originally. Beautifully done. Very, very well registered, really good colour, an absolute joy to see these. The instruction sheet is very, very simple, as you might expect. The front page here is a very brief history of the aircraft and some very gentle amount of specifications there in English, French, German, Spanish, and Swedish. On the inside of this page are some basic assembly instructions, and here are some translations of the icons in about a dozen or so different languages. The instructions themselves are, I suspect, based vaguely on one of the, not on the originals, but I suspect this has been redrawn at some point along the way, because these aren't like the original exploded diagram types. These are probably maybe the last release or something like that. They may have, someone will know. Someone who knows about the history of every kit that Airfix ever made will be able to tell me when these instructions were made. But then they're tidied up by the current graphics team, and then modern icons are put in that they wouldn't have used before. Interestingly, they do use some of the modern techniques, like green things are things you cut off. So if you're doing the later version of the helicopter, they didn't have the end plates, the fins on the tail. They just had the plain tail, so you can cut the tabs off. Otherwise, you put the tail on there, the tail plates on there. It's a lot more, it just feels a bit more expansive and a bit more straight, a bit more modern in a way. But this is a 1959 kit, which makes me suggest these have been redrawn somewhere along the line. And they are putting colour into this. This whole sheet is a 4-colour print, so they can afford the luxury of putting sort of orange, yellow, bits in to highlight stuff, and the green bits, and here the crew, what looks like in RAF blue, a double-breasted RAF blue suit with white hats. Seems very strange to me. Anyway, as I say, I'll probably get a separate pair of crew from somewhere or other, nick them from somewhere. Yeah, the one thing that does strike me is the idea of building the whole kit and then putting the rotor blades onto the rotor hub. Because the hub has a pin underneath which fits into this hole anyway, and I'm not going to be doing this to make them spin. They are going to be stationary when I put them in. I will probably leave those until the end and then put them on later, so at least it gives a chance for the blades to bond with the hubs properly. I don't think it would be all that easy with a finished kit to keep these in place and not falling all over the place. So that's my plan there. Just thought I'd add that. Then on this page, with the first of the two schemes, this one is for the Aircraft and Armament Experimental Establishment, ANAEE, as it was known, at Royal Air Force Boscombe Down in Wiltshire, in late 1959, where so much development and experimental flying was performed, especially trials of aircraft about to be sort of submitted for the RAF, or actually sort of a pre-RAF existence, as it were. You know, the film of the TSR-2 flying, for example, was all from Boscombe Down. So all these new decals going on, they're going to look great, I'm sure. The colour schemes are great with white on top. And then there's another scheme here where it's the trials unit of the RAF, Odium. So they go through the ANAEE for basic acceptance and then trials to actually figure out the handling of the aircraft or helicopter in actual service. And it's very, very similar. It's kind of a pity that I don't know if these actually served in other colours. There were only sort of 20-something of them, but you know, in the Far East or whatever, I would have thought this would stand out a bit. So I might see if there are any other colours available that they actually flew in. But if not, then I guess this is likely to be the one I'll use. So that's the instruction sheet. There it is, not too bad a kit at first glance, although I've yet to see how it actually goes together. The new decals do look very good though. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, please do remember, give it the Imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. And do subscribe to the channel. If you also hit the bell, you will get notified of all my future content as it's released. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope to see you again soon on the channel. Take good care now and goodbye.